Shantanu, welcome back.
Yes, back again.
Yes, it was really nice to know about your initial journey and the lovely upbringing that you've had, and fortunate upbringing.
Yep.
So, I'm sure a lot of listeners will be inspired by your philosophy and your approach towards not just work but towards life.
Yes, that's the idea. Hope.
Yeah. So, we have a lot of viewers who sent in questions. We filtered them.
All right.
So, I'll just read out the question to you and then you can give your reply.
Sure. Sure.
So we have one person who's asked, how do you make musicians feel comfortable in the studio and why is that important?
Well, there are many ways to make a musician comfortable. And the first way is by welcoming him like he is the most important person in the room, and it's about him or her, and it's not about you. So, because in the end, if your musician or your band or your artist is not going to be comfortable and not going to be happy in the environment, which anyway, a recording studio is a daunting environment, he's not going to be able to perform, or she is not going to be able to perform to the best of his or her abilities. And if that's not going to happen, you're not going to be able to catch a good performance, and which is going to make your recording not be good, and it's not going to show the artist in his or her true light, and which is basically a failed process. So that's the reason why an artist must feel comfortable in the environment he or she is in. And the way you make it feel comfortable is to make them feel that they are the most important person in the world at that point of time, and you are just there as an assist and to help. You'll be surprised, you could be working with maestros, and but walking into a studio is a very, very foreboding kind of place to most people. So when it actually is supposed to be a creative environment, so you have to bring that vibe. And there are so many ways to do it, but the first way to do it is actually to make the artist feel at home, make them feel that they are the most important people in the world, because in the end, you are there to record them. You are not here to show off your skills. Your skills are there to make someone else look good, and that's when you look good. So it's a very, very symbiotic process. So you make your artist feel really important. The moment the artist feels comfortable in the surroundings, walk your artist through the place, explain to him the technology that you will be using. Most of them will know what's going to be happening, but it's just reassure them that this is. And I'm obviously talking if you're going to be working with that artist for the first time. If I worked with them before, they already know, so it's not really a problem. So it's usually with the artist for working with an artist for the first time, and it really doesn't matter whether that artist is junior or senior. It could be a debutant artist as well, and it is your duty to make that debutant artist feel like he or she is a veteran of the environment. So you just have to bring that to the table. There are I wouldn't say there's any one specific way, but just by talking and being polite and by being gracious and by making them feel important and that we are there to help you out, and no other thing. And we just hope that they can go back with the best possible performance that they are capable of bringing on that day. So there's no real trick to it. It's just your people skills, which you develop over a period of time. Thankfully, I had that when I was growing up again, of how being able to be social and being able to be in a social environment, and being humble, being gracious, and at the same time holding your own is what is respected, not just amongst your peers and friends and family, but amongst your clients as well. So you just got to bring that to the table.
That answers a lot. Shantanu, how important is it for an audio engineer to be patient? And in what situations does this, kind of get tested? That am I really patient or not?
Well, patience is the key, because forget about being an audio engineer. I find today's kids, the fact of instant gratification is really a lack of patience. They want to achieve too many things too soon, and which is exactly what happens in the studio. There is a certain amount of skill that is involved. You have to accept the fact that there will be certain people walking into your room on studio who won't be as skilled as you would expect them to be, but they're there. And you have to make them feel important and make them feel wanted and make them feel good, because within their limitations they still have to be able to perform. So you just got to be patient, and you don't have a choice, because let me tell you something. If you're not patient and you get angsty and you get snappy and you get irritable, that expression shows off onto the artist, and trust me, okay, you'll do it, that artist is not going to come back to you again. And that is a lesson to be learned, because what makes a good engineer is not just your recording skills, but the people wanting to or work only with you, who will repeat clients, is your biggest asset that you have for a studio that you're going to be working with, and that keeps your studio management happy as well. So patience plays a important game. You might have, because people right now, they just want everything to be done fast. Let's record this fast, let's do this fast, let's do this edit quickly. So everyone wants it quickly. They think digital is going to make things quicker. Actually, digital does make it quicker, but it also gives it enables people to hit Command Z, and there is undo. When we started off, and this is where this has been ingrained in our heads. There was no room for error. You couldn't make mistakes. So in order not to make mistakes, you did a lot of pre-production, you did a lot of homework, you did everything carefully, you did everything systematically. And when you do all that takes time. So that is patience too. And all that process before you actually get to hit the record button is actually your patience, and which is going to stand you in good stead when you're actually going to be recording. Because then after that, if you've got your pre-production and your basics right, which is what I said in my interview, I think 12 years ago, whenever that was, it's getting your basics right. So the moment you have your principles and fundamentals right and correct, the rest of the process is going to be absolutely smooth and fine. And that is also a form of patience which needs to be inculcated. Gone are the days when we had people still say, Shantanu, you take your time. I said, yeah, that's why it sounds good, right? So it's as simple as that. I'll take time to make sure that the microphone is placed just precisely, because moving a microphone a centimeter here and there makes a huge difference in sound. It's not, I won't correct it in the mix, because if I don't have to correct it in the mix, I might as well get it right in the recording. And which gives me that, how much more time am I taking? I'm just walking into a dubbing room and just moving a microphone here, it'll just take me a couple of minutes more. Are those minutes going to change your life? Is it going to make it a hit single or not a hit single? So it really doesn't matter. Do it right, do it well. Obviously, don't waste time, and don't be a slowpoke, and just be fidgety. And definitely what you should not be doing is show that you're in two minds. Be very confident with what you're doing. Even if you're going to do it wrong, do it confidently. So yeah, patience is key to everything, not just as an audio engineer, but to all forms in life, to everyday life as well.
Very true. And I think we are losing a lot of it.
Oh, it's gone. I would say losing. Gone. People have lost it. Instant gratification. Today I've come out of recording engineering school. Tomorrow I want to be chief engineer at YRF.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next question is, Shantanu, how can one train his or her ears, towards understanding EQ, compression, etc., to understand a mix better?
Basically, good sound. It's just listening to well-recorded music in good formats. People keep talking about MP3, MP3, MP3. Well, MP3 is a format. It was devised for a particular purpose. It was never meant to be an audio reference. Unfortunately, it became one, and then that became your standard. So that exactly is what ear training has proved wrong. People have gotten so used to that MP3 sound, that anything else that happens to them sounds weird. So you can see that the sound has gotten thinner, the width has gotten smaller, the reproductional values are not as good. So all I say is listen to well-recorded good music. And I dare say, unfortunately, I cannot give you any example of Bollywood, including what I did, as something that you could say, okay, use this as an example. Uh, you know, Go follow the masters of the craft. Talk to me. I will tell you what to listen to. Tune yourself into, this is the way a good sounding mix sounds. This is a way a good sounding, electric or acoustic guitar sounds. There are so many examples available to us at high resolution formats. The more you listen to that, the more that gets imbibed and imprinted into your brain. I keep saying that, every sonic perception or oral stimulant that you have needs to be imprinted in your brain, not just to show you good, but also to show you what's bad. Because it's the ability to be able to differentiate between good, average, and bad is very, very essential for you to have heard the whole range and spectrum. So it is very, very important to ear train. And by ear training, I dare say, phones and laptop speakers is not the best medium for you to make a judgment call. Neither are some of these headphones that are available to you. And sadly, because the format that you're listening to is not the best of resolutions, obviously, vinyl has gone out of style, and right now it's just audiophile stuff. But a CD through a regular system is probably still, even if through a boombox, is still better ear training than listening to music off your phone and through pods. So, listen to proper formats, listen to the real thing. It doesn't really matter what speakers you listen to. A good sounding recording will sound great out of any speakers. It really does. And at the same time, you play a shitty recording, it's going to sound shitty even out of hi-fi pro audio speakers. So, that should be able to tell you a difference. And the ability to be able to differentiate between good and bad and excellent needs to be there. So therefore, you need to know what excellent also is. And that needs to be your yardstick. I spoke in part one about yardstick and benchmarks. This is your benchmark. This is your yardstick. Listen to the great recordings, not just of the past, but there are many great recordings that are available today. Listen to that. If you don't know where, call me, message me, send me a post on Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is, and not just me, there are enough of my colleagues and my peers who are willing to help you out. People might just say, oh, your generation and stuff like that. Well, I listen to a lot of music, a lot of young kids also listen to, so I'm very well in tune with that as well. And I appreciate a lot of the stuff that is good. I also know that there's a lot of shit out there, and it's the ability to be able to siphon out is what then actually trains your ears. And then the moment your ears feel a particular way, it becomes, second nature to you. And then you start reproducing that in your own work and the own sounds that you actually sit down to make.
True. Thank you so much for that advice and guidance. And the next question we have is, you have worked with a lot of Bollywood composers who send you like 150, 200 plus tracks. So how do you manage them? How do you incorporate your console and outboard gear while mixing such sessions?
Well, first of all, I can't stop people sending me stuff. And um, well, it's I wouldn't say it's a trade secret, but a lot of the times I'll go through the tracks, and almost, you know 40% of those tracks are rubbish tracks, which I would probably mute and not even use as part of the mix. So that makes things simpler. So I'll, mute, unmute, see if it makes any kind of oral difference to me, whether it's accentuating something or highlighting a part or not. Uh, and take a creative decision at that point of time. So those kind of things are very instinctive that come to me. So, getting a session which has 200 odd tracks in it is not really a problem. It is annoying and it is time consuming because, instead of being able to start mixing and making the song listenable, a lot of your time is wasted, and it causes a lot of fatigue to be hearing rubbish and to be then going through each particular phrase and seeing whether it's necessary or not necessary, or whether it's recorded well or not recorded well, whether it needs to be there or doesn't need to be there. And obviously you have a rough mix or a ref mix which your music director has sent you, so you immediately get to know whether that part is essential or not essential, or whether it's doing nothing. Yeah, it's a creative call, but unfortunately it gets laborious, and probably a full day goes out in just cleaning up the tracks, and which is what I tell most recording engineers. Be systematic. I know you got a computer to work with, and you've got different DAWs to work with, but you still need to follow the old school of analog method of being able to name each track. Don't just call it audio 1, audio 2, audio 3, audio 4. It's a mind fuck, to go through a track which has 150 tracks just called audio 1 to 154 tracks. Call it don't call it pad 1, 2, pad 3, pad 4, pad 4. Just right, maybe pad chorus, pad whatever, stratosphere, or whatever you want to call it. Be specific about it, so your mix engineer who's not familiar with the track immediately can go to that particular section. Of course you can see the waveform, but sometimes you have something layered from beginning to the end and you're wondering what the fuck is going on. So it's just a question of in the old days how we used to do. We used to have a track list which we used to systematically, laboriously write down, and because we had limited track counts in those days, you had to squeeze a lot of things onto one particular track. You might have a bell, you might have a hit, you might have suddenly one guitar strum or something all happening on one track. So you had to put in very specific time code as to, okay, at time code this I got a bell, at this point on beat number 2 I got this happening. So we were very, very aware as to what was there, and if we were not mixing the track, and that track went to someone else, the other engineer didn't have that fucking nightmare of having to, oh fuck, where the fuck did that come from, and you're trying to figure it out. And this is the biggest problem that we face nowadays, because the tracks come to us in pathetic condition, and so things have started improving, and I hope they continue to improve, and to that tracks start coming at better labeled and stuff like that, and not unnecessary stuff. And if you feel like, if you got 8 kick drums, for example, for God's sake, don't send me 8 kick drum tracks, at your end itself, instead of me having to go through each fucking kick drum and see whether it's required or not. You just do an internal bounce, because obviously you're hearing all those 8 kick drum tracks as one kick drum. You're not hearing it as individual kick drums. That would be stupid. So, just bounce that down onto one kick drum track, and give that to me as one kick drum. So you already have an inbuilt premix happening of the kick drum that you sent me. Makes life so much simpler, and lets me concentrate on the actual mixing instead of just being, a garbage cleaner.
Right.
Yeah.
So, speaking of mixing, there's a question that says, what is your approach in mixing low end?
Well, it's a bit of an ambiguous question, because it depends what you mean by low end. It's if I had to break it down to basics of a basic band, let's say, like, you have rhythm, you have bass, you have guitars, you have keyboards, you have vocals. And so obviously you got to feel enough of kick drum, the bottom end on the kick drum. What are the fundamental frequencies of a kick drum? What are the fundamental frequencies of the bass guitar? By adding actual frequencies as such, you're not really adding bottom end, because if the bottom end is not there and you're just adding boosting frequency which isn't really there, you're just adding up to the noise floor, which is going to muddy things up, and which is where your ear training comes into place, which is where your monitoring comes into place, which is where your room comes into place as to how true your room is. Are there any frequencies which are being attenuated? Are there any frequencies which are getting boosted? How are you hearing it? Where are your monitors placed? How are your monitors placed? All those kind of things determine not just low end. Low end, everyone seems to concentrate on low end. Low end is not really a problem with what is there in the track. What's there is there. I always put it there. If you want more bottom end, use a sample or use an instrument which has more bottom end. Don't ask me to add a particular frequency when it's not there, but it's basically all I'm doing is adding noise to it. That's my approach. It's a very, very classical approach. A lot of things that I do, for example, when I'm dealing with rock music, for example, I would on a bass guitar or on the kick drum, I decide what stays, what requires more prominence. Do I want the snap of the kick to be more, or do I want the punch and the thump of the bottom end of the kick drum to be more, or should the bass be over the kick drum? Should it be under the kick drum? Depends on the genre also. So those decisions are usually made at the production level. But in case it's not, then I use my experience, I use my ears to tell me what should be the determining factor of the reference and the balance between kick drum and bass guitar. A lot of times, what I would do is to have more bottom end of a particular instrument to come out more, I would probably cut on the other instrument which is clashing, which then it makes it feel that the other instrument, the bottom end has been heightened. For example, so for the bass to have more bottom end, I would probably take out a little bit of bottom end on the kick drum. So I get the impression that there's actually more bottom end. So because I'm making sure that those two frequencies of the bass guitar and the kick drum are not really canceling each other out. So that's really my approach to it. And a lot of times what I might do, but now has pretty much become the norm, is I love to add a subharmonic frequency to a bass guitar, which is more felt than actually heard. But the moment, and you probably won't notice it for an average listener, but when you're actually in the room and you mute the sub frequency and you unmute the sub frequency, you can just feel the difference. To me, it's purely, again, by feel as to how much do I want of that feel good vibe, or is it taking the attention away from the actual rhythmic pattern, because a lot of times if you do certain things wrong, it upsets the rhythmic balance, not just between drums or rhythm and bass, but between internally within the rhythm itself. Which is why I always believe hearing the overhead track in solo for a drum section is you actually get to know the balance which the drummer has played to. How intense is his kick drum, how intense is the snare drum, how hard is he hitting the toms and such like that. So that internal balance is really, really important to maintain, and because the drummer has played it that way. And but that again is not really that relevant when it comes to commercial pop music or top 40 kind of music. But when it comes to fusion and rock and roll, those kind of balances do play an important role, because those drummers, you're working with someone like Steve Gadd. There's a reason why he's not hit that kick drum that hard. It's because that's the kind of vibe that he wants. If you're working with Jeff Porcaro, for example, again, that's the kind of vibe that you want. Especially with ghost notes and things like that. On the snare drum or on the hi-hats, or what's happening on the kick drum. There's a reason why that dynamic is there. And it's important for you to maintain that integrity of the dynamic of the drummer who's played it, because he and the rest of the band or the producers felt that was the correct way. You are not God to try and change that. So, keeping low end clean and I would say correct is a matter of ears, and is a matter of taste, and it's also a matter of common sense. Because again, really low frequencies are omni frequencies. They don't really have any directionality. So on smaller systems, you probably won't hear it. But on the larger systems, you will hear it, and just see whether that's interfering with anything else, because it can be quite annoying to just have a low frequency resonance happening through a beautiful part which doesn't really need that kind of accents.
Right. So basically, it's better if you talk to the drummer in this example that you gave,
Oh yeah,
or the
either
musician.
not the drummer, the music director or the producer, or the arranger, whoever, you use your instinct and to go what you think is right. And then, there is the producer, the arranger, or the songwriter, whoever will come back to you, whether he or she likes it this way or not, and whether it matches what their vision that they had in their head. If it doesn't, you get into a discussion and you try and fix that. And sometimes you might be at total opposite ends of the pole, but sometimes you just have to find middle ground. And the client is always king, and he wins, and you give him or her what he wants, so that he'll come back to you for the next gig.
True, true. That's a good approach to keep.
Yeah.
So, when do you know, okay, I'm done with the mix? This is
you never know.
Okay.
You never know.
You never have that final sound in your head that, okay, I've achieved it, now stop.
Yeah, you say, yeah, I've achieved it, and then you come back in 10 minutes time and say like, let me try something else, and then you go and fuck it up. Right. So yeah, so someone's got to say, so it's very rare that you actually keep on. So either the budget runs out, so that's when the mix ends, or you get tired of it, that's when your mix ends. So and here's the positive part of it. Mix is over when you're going on for it for too long. So either you love that song too much, which means you're not being objective about it. So which means you need to lay off, and you need someone else to come in with a fresh set of ears, because there has to be an end. And the moment you have any doubts, call your client in and say like, hey, I think I'm done. What do you think? And either that client will say, great, make these few fixes, or he'll say, I think you can work on it a little more in these parts, and that's it. And it's a very interactive process. So especially in today's commercial world, we don't have the luxuries of being able to mix a song over 5 days and 6 days, and then releasing it, reviewing it after 6 months. I got to mix a song today, and it's going to be released in a month's time. And so I don't have those luxuries anymore, because earlier on we did have those luxuries, where you could take your time, let's approach this mix again. Let's bring it up. Let's throw up some faders and see what we can do to fuck around and see how it goes. And because we had, of course, things weren't that expensive, and there weren't that many options that were required. You had maximum, you had 48 tracks to work with, and that's it. So you did everything, and that's the best part. When we were starting off, you recorded things so well that your mix really didn't take too much time. You were recording like you were mixing. And so, when you're recording everything in its correct perspective and balance, your mix is ready. And, so when you're actually fine tuning the mix, you're just doing a couple of tweaks here and there, and chops here and there, and just adding a little bit of sparkle and magic dust. And that's it. Your mix is done, So on an average, a mix that I do doesn't take me more than, well, I would say a mix would take me max 12 hours to mix it. And I'll spread that over 2 days. So 6-7 hours one day, 6-7 hours the next day. That's 14 hours. So, on an average of 12 hours, you spread it over 2 days. It's fine. So that's the amount of time. The longer you take about it, you start overthinking, and it's never good to overthink about anything.
True. So there's a connected question that this person has asked is, in an industry where every person thinks he's an audio guru,
okay,
how do you deal with the modification demands, and what do you do when the modification request suddenly arrives when you've taken down the mix from the console?
Well, you don't have a choice. He's your client. He's paying you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you do it.
Okay.
Yeah, simple.
Right.
Simple. And you're getting, if he's asking you to do it for free, of course, then you say fuck off. But he's paying you for it, and in the end, if that's what he wants and that's what it takes to get the mix off the desk and out into, and he's happy, and the moment he's happy, he's going to come back to you for more. And the moment you start throwing attitude and you start saying fuck off and I can't do this and I can't do that, well, he'll tolerate it once. He's not going to tolerate it the second time. He'll go to someone else and say, like, listen, I'll get it done of someone else. Simple. And you don't, you so, and the thing is, you have to realize you're doing a good job yourself. It's not that you're doing a bad job. So whatever you're asking sometimes might be unreasonable, or the client might be, you can always talk to the client and say, like, listen, I think that's a bit unreasonable. Certain things which are achievable, certain things which aren't achievable. And 99.9% of your times, your client respects that, because you're being honest with them. You're not just trying to blow smoke up their ass. That's not my job, because you're paying me, and you're paying me decently to do a good job, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a good job to make you happy. And if you want certain fixes, well, I will do it if it's correct. If I feel that it's not correct to do certain things, I'll talk to my client, and that's it. It's an interactive process. But in the end, even if it's an unreasonable demand, but you can do it, and you might not like it, but the client thinks I think it's great, and in the end, his name is going out onto it, not my name. Well, too bad. So be it. He's the client. He's king. He rules, and he's paying you for it. So shut the fuck up and get the job done.
So that answers a lot of things.
Yeah.
So the next question is on mastering. So this person wants to know, how can we achieve depth in mastering?
Well, honestly, I will not be able to answer that question, because I'm not a mastering engineer. Okay.
Right. But your take on mastering in that case, at least your view on mastering as a concept?
Well, mastering is important for the simple reason that, it just binds the album together. If you're doing, like, let's say there's an album with 6 songs, and those 6 songs are being done by 6 different engineers and 6 different studios. When you play when you play the album back to back, all 6 songs, it needs to sound like a cohesive, and it needs to be glued together, and which is what your mastering engineer will do, because there might be one song which might have a little extra sibilance. There might be one song which is a bit muddy in the mid-range or in the bottom end, or might not be as wide. So your mastering engineer you'll get a good perspective as to what the album sounds like, or should sound like, and he'll make it sound like one cohesive effort. And that's what your mastering engineer is doing. If he's going to start changing the balances and changing width and all those kind of things, well, you probably haven't done a good job at the mix itself. So that's all I can say about mastering, because all the mastering that work that for what I get done for all my projects, I work only exclusively with this wonderful mastering engineer by the name of Chris Athens, who started off his career with Sony Music in New York, and then was a senior mastering engineer for almost probably around 15 years with Sterling Sound, based out of New York, and now he has his own facility based out of Austin in Texas, Chris Athens Mastering, and one of the fine mastering engineers who I actually believe makes me sound better than I actually am. But well, that's the connection that I have with him, and I really believe that if there are any mastering questions, one could reach out to Chris Athens directly. He's on Instagram and on Facebook. You could search him out and use my name as a reference, and he'll gladly answer every question that you may have about mastering.
Great, that's very nice of you to help people out and students out.
Yeah.
So Shantanu, now COVID is an excuse for many things. People are saying, I have to work from home. And in our conversation that we did 8 years ago, you have emphasized very nicely about the importance of recording and recording right.
Yeah.
Which you also mentioned a few minutes ago here.
Yeah.
But given the situation and constraints people have,
yeah,
how can one get better sound recording at home?
It's a very, very valid question, especially in today's COVID-19 times. Well, let's start off with, you need to get, if you want to do good recordings, you either get your recording environment at home into proper shape for by treating your room, most importantly, because your room plays a huge role as to how your microphone is going to react with the source. Okay. Uh, or go into a recording studio. Simple. Because your recording studio has done all the investments for you, actually. Uh, and, I don't see it as a problem. If there are certain things you can't do at home, well, go into the recording studio. Don't record a drum kit at home. Just because you can set up 8 different microphones, that doesn't mean you got it all. Most people think, oh, I can do vocals recording at home, and I'll tell you something. You hear some of the vocal recordings which are done in untreated rooms. You can make out the difference. It sounds like shit. So, people will say, okay, I'll put up curtains, I'll put up, heavy drapes, or do something, that's not going to really cut it, because you will record it. But is it recorded well? Well, I'm sorry to say so, it hasn't, because you've not paid proper attention to the room that you're recording in. You might be working with a great sound card or an interface, or have a powerful computer, or uh, uh, spend some money on a good microphone. Well, your microphone is going to sound, is the better the microphone, the worse it's going to sound in a bad room, because it's going to pick up all that shit too. So maybe a bad microphone in a bad room might probably turn out to be a better way of doing things, where, because a good microphone is not going to be forgiving. A bad microphone, well, I don't think there's anything like a bad microphone, but not one of the better ones, which are known for recording, if they're used in a not such a good room, would probably cut the job and do the job better than a great microphone in a fucked up room. So you got to treat your room. You got to get it acoustically right to be able to do a good recording. And when I say good recording, it's got to be on par with what you would do when you're going into a proper professional recording studio. That's a good recording. Yeah. It's not like, will it do? Yeah, sure, it'll do. I record in my bathroom, it'll do. I can record over my iPhone, it'll do. But can it really do? Will it be able to cut it? If you hit it up in solo, and when you're actually mixing it with like superior tracks, well, it's not going to happen. You can fool yourself about it, but it's not going to happen.
Right. So I think a lot of people who are doing this will get the message, and want
Yeah,
to go to a recording studio now
do.
that at least that is possible, unlike
Yes.
a few months ago.
Yeah.
So at least that can be done, because if it's work that is giving you money, it's better to be done professionally and properly.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Because you're charging money for it. You better be doing the best job
Correct.
possible. That's it. You're
Correct.
responsible. That's it. And I call that accountability.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. So Shantanu, this brings me to a point which I wouldn't say it is just being asked for creating any kind of a sensation,
Hmm.
but what are your thoughts on now a trend is coming where music producers are saying, boss, I will only mix and I will only master your track. काय को बाहर जाता है?
Yeah.
That is becoming a trend. And
Yeah.
not just in the last 6 months because of COVID, but over the
Yeah.
last couple of years, like you rightly said.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this? That
Well,
because in their defense, they're saying, what is there in it? I'm doing a job. I know how it is done. I know, understand EQ. I understand compression. I know how to do it. Just tweak some knobs here and there. It sounds great. It's fine. Why
yeah.
should a sound engineer be involved?
Yeah.
So, what is your
Well, my view is like, fuck it. If they think that they don't need you, well, I'm not here to change people's perceptions, and I'm not here to teach you what to do, right? So if you think that you can do it all, please go right ahead and do it. Uh, if you were concerned that you're going to be putting a small community out of work, well, that's your karma to deal with. Okay, it's not my karma. So uh, while I know a lot of musicians who do that. Some of them do a great job, some of them don't, and that's why no one really asks me, because I will call a spade and tell it like it is. I wouldn't like to really take names at this point, because I'm here to create controversy or to raise eyeballs about anything. But yes, this trend is disturbing. It's disturbing for the livelihood of the community of engineers at hand. I wouldn't like to really comment as to how good those mixes are because, again, if the client is happy with that, well, like I said, it doesn't really matter. The client is happy and he doesn't feel the need for you to go to an engineer. So if your client is happy and your music director, music producer thinks that he can record, mix, and master, well, more power to him. And that's it. So I don't think what I think is morally wrong is for the music producer to actually believe that, I can be the jack of all trades and I don't need professional engineer to come into it. Well, I think that's being very pompous. I think that's being, I don't think that actually lives up to the traditions and, vows you take as a musician. But more power to them if that's what they feel. And is it disturbing? Yeah, it's disturbing. It screws a lot of things up, and it's a problem.
So, Shantanu, I was talking to like you, a senior music producer, and we were just discussing on this point that now this is what is happening. His take was, he's been in the industry for, say, just like you, for about 30 years. He's saying he understands EQ, he understands compression, he understands these terms because he's also worked for 3 decades,
Yeah.
and seen the analog and digital era. But his thing is, even today, an engineer, when he does something to the track, I say, "Arey, what did you do? I could not achieve the sound." And his point is that because this engineer has recorded every day a new instrument or a different kind of instruments with different mics, that engineer knows his job. That is his job. Yeah. My job is to deliver tracks to him, and it is his job to kind of tweak it.
Absolutely.
Why should I, as a music producer, take over? That was his response.
Absolutely. And that is exactly the way it is. Look at it very simply. Michael Jackson, Quincy Jones, Bruce Swedien, all 3 great artists working together on one particular album. Michael, being so multi-talented, could probably play every instrument. He knew every nuance and everything about a console, of a recorder. His own home studio was state-of-the-art, which he used to operate himself. Quincy Jones needs no introduction, could probably do everything himself as well. Was also a great producer, great trumpet player, all those things. And then Bruce Swedien, who's a brilliant engineer at what he does. Let everyone who is good at what they do their job. Michael, your job is to write great songs and perform them. Quincy, your job is to produce and make that particular song the best avatar and version of that song. Bruce, you make all of that sound so fucking amazing that everyone is going to say, wow. So all 3 at the top of their game are doing the best that they possibly can for what they are good at. That is my answer to that question. And this is the best example that I can use. Michael Jackson, Quincy Jones, Bruce Swedien. You can't beat that combination. You can't just end the best of that particular world. Look at Prince. Prince was a multi-instrumentalist par excellence. His studio, Paisley Park Studios, was probably the finest studios ever built and still in existence. He used to engineer, he could engineer everything. He could record everything. He could play every instrument. He knew everything about microphone techniques, blah, 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 the works. He still used an engineer because it's really important to have a different set of ears and a different perspective to a particular song that artist. So if that artist is so self-consumed that he or she thinks that he can do everything himself or herself, well, that is not really a true artist. I dare say is like that artist was borderline on being pompous and being arrogant. And arrogance does not belong in music. You know, let me bring in when I want a different opinion. There are a lot of times when I'm mixing, and no way am I saying am I great or am I some kind of maestro or anything of that sort. But I get tired of something, and sometimes I lose perspective. I need another set of ears, so I get someone else to come in and listen to it, and offer me advice and tell me like, listen, this is what I feel. And this is exactly why it's important to have different people do jobs that they are good at. Is just a different perspective, and in the end we are performing and we are doing something that is art. And art is there, and it's there for life. You can't go back and say, oh, I couldn't do this because, well, you've put it out there, right? So that means you've got to be happy with it. You can't go back. There are no excuses. You're not coming back and saying, oh, I didn't have a budget, so I couldn't go to an engineer. I had to do everything myself, and make that as an excuse. Hey, man, you were pompous enough and you were arrogant enough to think that you knew how to do everything. Well, you dig your own grave. And that's exactly what's going to happen.
So, do you think this is a very dangerous trend that is being set?
Oh, of course, it is a dangerous trend, and it borderlines arrogance. At the same time, it borderline and it reeks of ignorance.
Because a lot of young or people who are going to enter this industry will then make uh, this set as their benchmark,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
not look at what happened earlier.
Exactly, and that's a precedent that needs to be broken, and which is what a lot of us are trying to do in a way, without actually trying to sound aggrieved. Like, hey, man, you're good at what you do. You continue to do what you're good at doing. Let me do what I'm supposed to be good at doing. Don't take my job away from me, because everyone needs a gig, and we are all here to help each other out. This we are a community, and the only reason why we can continue to be a community is if we have each other's back. If you're going to be arrogant enough and pompous enough to say like, I don't fucking need you, well, let me tell you something, man. When the chips are down, you're going to get fucked, and you're going to get fucked real bad, and it's going to show somewhere or the other. And believe me, there is one really, really crazy motherfucking sword which is going to hang over your head, and that sword's name is karma. Yeah, and that karma will come and get you. Might not get you this lifetime, but it'll come and get you. You'll be born as a fucking dirty little rat or a cockroach, which no one fucking wants.
As an analogy, I can maybe I don't know if it's fits in here, but what Amazon is doing to people like Sudeep Audio. Oh, I'll get it on Amazon. Why do I need you?
Exactly.
But they
Ex-
don't know that when something goes wrong, who will
exactly.
stand by you?
Exactly that. Exactly that. It's all right. I can purchase something from anywhere, but if I want advice, like, remember, I'm talking to you about Burl A to D, D to A converters. You
Yeah,
know,
when
you
you had
know,
Meera Nair's recording.
yeah, I could have gone directly to Burl, right? Yeah, but why didn't? Because I know that if something goes wrong, I'm not going to have Mr. Burl going to be sitting down at fucking middle of the night trying to help me out with my fucking problem. I know Aditya is going to help me out with my problem, whatever time of the night it might be. And that is what I need to support. And we are a community, Adi. You know that. We are a community. We live with each other, we live off each other, and we need each other. uh, the days of being selfish and the days of being exclusive are gone. I have never ever believed in exclusivity. I've always believed in inclusivity, and I've always believed the more people who are in it together towards a common goal, the faster you're going to reach it, and the stronger you're going to be at the base. Because once you reach the top can be really, really narrow. So the stronger the base and the wider the base, there's more room for people at the top.
So I really hope that those who are watching this will understand the need of an engineer
I hope so.
and not use budget as an excuse to say, "अरे budget नहीं था, so I didn't take him."
Yeah,
And this is for the entire community. I speak for the entire community
absolutely. Yes.
and all of us involved. Like you said, we are all in a way a family, a working family where
Yes, we are. We
we
are.
are helping each other in whatever way we can.
And there will be problems, because tell me which family does not have arguments with each other? They all do. there are disagreements, there's laughter, there's crying, there's all emotions within a family. We are just an extended audio community family, and these things and this friction is good. That friction brings about growth, it brings about understanding, and that's exactly what we are lacking today, and that has to grow.
True. I think that is really wonderful advice that you gave, to young students who are watching this, or even professionals who are watching this,
Yeah.
and will understand and accept this point of view.
Whatever people want, man. You're talking to me, you're asking me, I'm giving you my opinion, my perspective. It's my philosophy. It works for me. If it helps change someone else's mindset, and and that person is successful, well, that's great. If some people might just debunk my philosophy and my ideology, that's fine too. It's a question of people uh, leaving your egos behind, and coming towards a common goal, which is basically uplifting yourself as a human being. Being an audio engineer is actually uh, is nothing compared to being a good human being, and that's what one we need to strive to do, and to help each other as a community. And the moment we start doing that, being an audio engineer, being a good audio engineer, will become that much easier.
Superb. So Shantanu, thanks for answering these some of these questions that we got from the viewers. So
Cool.
I would say this phase of life now is like a freelancer that happened post music room.
But with a lot more focus.
Right.
In the sense,
So what
uh,
are your plans?
there's only one way, man. Adi, and I'm being honest from the heart. Is uh, I have to. There's so many years which I've given up my life and service for other people's benefit. It's about time I started doing something for my own, and by that I mean setting up my own facility. Uh, uh, and being able to extend that to the audio community. And the kind of person that I am, I'm not just going to set up any old facility just to make it run. I don't stand by those kind of principles, and that's exactly what I've spoken about in my earlier videos. It'll be grade A, class A. Uh, it might not be the largest of facilities, but whatever it will be, it'll be it'll be great. It'll be kick-ass. It'll be top grade, top of the line stuff, and which will be open to everybody to use at very, very reasonable rates, and just bring up the level as to and raise the playing field, raise the bar for what audio excellence needs to achieve here in this country. uh, I might die not achieving that, but at least I know I would have tried.
Um, cheers to that, and
Yep.
please remember Sudipod is always there at your service.
Oh man, I wouldn't be here without the support of guys like you, Adi. Honestly, and I mean that very, very sincerely. It's not just trying to be complimentary for just for the sake of it. I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
And I truly understand that, and I really appreciate. And Shantanu, it was lovely talking to you. And finally, after 8 years of chasing you every
Yeah.
month, we got to do a video with you.
Yes, we did. We did.
So and it's turned out really good, I think.
Well, I hope so. I hope
Yeah.
so. All right.
And here's wishing you all the very best in your future endeavors. And I hope to
Thank,
see you in soon in person.
thank you, Adi. God bless, man.
Thank you.
God
Thank you.
take,
Thank you.
take. Cheers.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. Bye.